All right, so here's another one we thought about.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't remember what brought this up. I might remember. I might remember as we're talking about this. I don't remember exactly what tipped this one off. This was about the military, though, and I thought this would be something good to bring up because obviously I was in. Kyle's getting ready to go off. You're going off in December, right?
December 1st.
Yeah, he's leaving December 1st for the Navy. Congratulations to him on that. So I think this is something, maybe we'll just end up talking about the military in general. All right. The military needs to get back to basics. 86, the whole airman concept. The military should scare normal people, stop the PC madness, community college of the Air Force gone, the degree, stop the military indoctrination, fire all the progressive generals and get back to people who aren't afraid to kill their enemy. I want generals chomping at the bit for war. Okay, so let me go over some of this a little bit here. So, military needs to get back to basics. A lot of that was the PC culture has run amok in the military. It's one of those things where now people are concentrating on. When I was in, one of the things that they were talking about was the whole airman concept. Okay, so one of the their goal, of course, remember goals are always the lofty part that end up biting people in the ass. I'm gonna have to come up with an acronym for that. That'd be good. Come up with an acronym for goals that makes it a bad thing. Anyway, so one of their goal was to make the force better. Everybody was going to be awesome, and they were all going to be great individuals and great airmen and yada 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 and all this other stuff. The problem was the emphasis on the things that when that situation got brought in, the emphasis became on things that were no longer about what you were doing in the military and whether or not you were completing your job properly. The emphasis then became on, well, how many hours did you volunteer? What's your college? How many college courses have you taken? What kind of outside activities? What kind of private organization? What kind of military private organizations are you involved in?
Are you talking about like the officer program style thing?
This was all complete. This went all the way down to enlisted because this was the issue with it. Okay, because there's an evaluation performance review system, the EPRs, in the military. And if you did not have schooling, if you did not have volunteer time, if you did not have all of these other little fancy little bullets on your EPR, you were not getting a 5 performance report, which a 5 performance report is the highest you can get, right? So, and of course, just like any system where people are making individual judgment calls, the bias is always weighted against somebody. So it doesn't matter if that individual is the best mechanic you've ever had. He's a solid airman that's dedicated. He's on time every day. He never misses a beat. He's always willing to stay late. But he's really knowledgeable at his job. He's the guy that you go to for when something's really bad. He's the guy you go to for it. Well, the problem was you could be all of those things and not ever make rank.
Okay.
You could be, the best, most knowledgeable guy in your career field, but at the end of the day, you just want to go home and hang out with your family. When the day's done and when you're released and you take that uniform off, your day is done. You can go home. The problem was the military, when they started doing like the whole airman concept, it went from, it didn't really, the sad part was it didn't even matter if you were good at your job or not. You could just be a okay guy at your job or even be shitty at your job. And you still ended up with these amazing performance reports. You still ended up with all these awards and all this other kind of stuff. And those performance reports and those awards directly affect how you're making rank in the military, which means it's affecting your pocketbook. So now you have people that might be crappy at their job, but they're going out and doing all these extracurricular activities, and they're spending time going to college and doing all this other stuff. Well, now that person is going to get rank faster than the guy who's really the expert at the job. Well, in the middle of a war zone, if you're in a firefight, do you want the guy who's a really good shot next to you in that foxhole, or do you want the guy who's got his associate's degree in business? Like, what's more important to you in the middle of a firefight? Is the guy that's really good at his job or the guy that's got college? So now you're getting people, so then you have a problem with higher tenure, right? So now you have a guy, if he doesn't make a certain rank by a certain amount of time in the military, he's kicked out. So even if he is the best, most knowledgeable resource of information you have, and he's the guy you always want next to him when shit goes down, now just because of the fact that he wasn't able to make rank because he wasn't willing to he didn't want to go to college, or he didn't want to volunteer outside of his hours for work and do all that kind of stuff, well, now that guy's not going to get rank, and now you're going to lose him from the military. And then even more is, say that's that guy, and even you don't kick him out per se. Well, that guy who's doing all of those stuff, who's really good at his job, who's the guy you want next to you in a foxhole, now he's going to be like, well, that asshole that sucks at his job, who isn't any good at what he does, I'm the expert at this job, and I'm really good at it, but because he got college, because he worked outside of his career field, now he outranks me, and now he's in charge of me, even though he has no idea what he's doing when it comes to the actual job that we were trained and hired to do inside of the military. Now you have some moron who's running the things and in charge of stuff, even though he has no idea what his job, even though he has no idea what he's actually doing. He's not the best person to be in charge of that. And that's the problem. That's why when I say the military needs to get back to basics, the military needs to be reminded that their job at the end of the day is to defend the United States and kill people. And anything that does not directly benefit those things, then you need to stop worrying about them. And fuck the PC bullshit. You know, the only reason they got rid of beards in the Navy, you're going to love this one. The only reason they got rid of beards in the Navy was because they took a poll of the United States general population, and Navy sailors that had beards were scarier than ones that were clean shaven.
Well, there was also the fact that there was a large... So, remember, pause. This is you were enlisted, you already got out. I am going in. I have not gone through boot camp. I have not gone through anything yet. I am still in the delayed entry program.
Yep.
So, my knowledge is through the delayed entry program, personal knowledge, and my mother-in-law, who was a master chief. I believe she was either master chief or she was at least a chief.
Yeah.
So she was E7 to E9.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure she was an E9. I think she was a master chief, as far as I know. Remember, I might be wrong on a lot of things. And as far as the beards and stuff, it was actually causing seal problems with our facial
That's the reason
stuff.
we can't have them now.
Yes. Now.
That's the argument for now. That's not the original reason they got rid of the beards.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
and here's the other thing about that is the reason why the
because
Navy
now it makes sense.
The Navy had beards because it was very traditional, and that's why it's a sailor thing. It was very much steeped in the history and the tradition of being a sailor and being someone out on the seas. That's where the whole beard thing came from. The sailors.
The reason now it's because it does break the seal in your mask. And
I get the reason now.
I'm just saying
that's not the point.
I understand the point now. I agree with it.
My point is that that's not
Yes,
political correctness and the opinion of the general public should not influence military decisions.
100% agree. It is a different world altogether and should stay that way.
Yeah.
But on the rank, was that specific to the Air Force or is it other? Because as far as I know, and I'm just going to go on what I know right now.
Right.
The way naval rank goes up, one, it's also based on like the population within that rank. Obviously, it's harder to move up. You have to take a test on your knowledge within that course, and then it's your decoration at that point. And I don't think a whole lot of college goes into it for us.
So
a whole lot.
When I say college factors into it, I don't mean college factors into you actually making rank. College factors into the score you get on your enlisted performance report, and your enlisted performance report in the Air Force will affect your total point score. So the way it works in the Air Force is you have two tests you take. One of them specifically over the knowledge of your job. The other one's based strictly over the knowledge of general Air Force information, right?
Yeah.
And
Navy's
those
the
are
same way
the
as far as I know.
those are the primary factors for making rank. The problem is also your enlisted reports factor into that. You get more points for better enlisted performance reports. So, like, if you get 5s on your EPR, you get more points to go towards your rank. Same thing if you have decorations and awards. A lot of those all go towards adding points to you making rank. And the decorations and performance reports are extremely subjective. So with the military concentrating on the whole airman concept and the political correctness and making sure that they're really good people all around and not being concentrated on really good at their job, have now made it to where the only people who do well on enlisted performance reports are people that volunteer a lot and people that are going to college and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, because as far as so whenever it comes to that in the Navy, at least as far as I know, and remember, I think she got it like 6 years ago. So like I said, I'm getting a lot of my information from her and the currently enlisted recruiters, which I actually have some.
If anybody ever asks, how do you know if a recruiter's lying? His mouth's moving.
Yeah, I actually I have a recruiter that's actually really good.
I had a really good one too.
Yeah, I got very lucky with my recruiters. But so as far as I know with the schooling, yes, it does factor in as far as I know, but it's not. So say I have two people that they went to school, they're going to school while they're in the Navy, right? One just got their associates in business, but they're an MA. The other one is also an MA, and they got a law enforcement degree. That law enforcement degree is going to go much heavier to that report than the business degree, because pretty much anyone in the Navy is pushed really heavily towards schooling right now.
Yeah, and that's
just because it's free.
No, trust me, it's a whole it's all the military.
Yeah, because as far as I know, a lot of it is because it's free. Like, and free is relative. Obviously, you start having
if you fail your classes, you have to pay them back.
Yes.
It's only if you pass the classes it's free.
But yeah, no, it's a big push
and
just to educate them for afterwards. Like, a lot of the older guys are like, dude, you need to be prepared for afterwards.
Instead of saying free, let's say it's taxpayer funded.
Yeah, it's taxpayer funded. Yeah.
There you go.
And it's nice because I hate to say it, but jobs aren't always easy, and MAs work long days, from my understanding, and that's what I'm going into, and that's where a lot of my information comes from, because I'm not going around getting air crewmen. I'm not going getting all this information on some other job I'm not going to be doing. That doesn't make sense. No. It's dumb. I'm going and getting information about my field. So
of course,
everyone I've talked to, yeah, it still heavily impacts it, but I don't agree with it impacting it heavily unless it is towards your field. Because if you're like, okay, say you're a mechanic and you took you got a degree in like mechanics, so you have a heavier knowledge on the functionality of things just in general. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I understand why that goes to it, but I don't see why. Yeah, I haven't been in, so I don't know the actual impacts of what I'm saying.
No, of course.
I will completely plead ignorance on this because...
And that's something you'll learn through time.
Though, I mean, I don't agree with PC culture having a whole lot of impact on it, just because it is still the military, and I hate to say it, but the job, and to those who don't know, you take an oath at the beginning saying you are there to defend and support the Constitution of the United States, meaning against any threat. That is your job. Meaning anything that gets in the way of it should not be, it's no factor. Just get out, get away from it. If you have a problem and you're really PC and you want to start petitioning the Navy about this and that, it's like, no, we're tatted. I know a lot of Navy guys are very heavily tatted most of the time. It's you're not taking away my tattoos. You're not doing that. That's not fair. Just because it might not be PC. To put in perspective, though, of how PC just the general military is now, I got in and I was talking to some Air Force dudes who were they were like, wait, you have tattoos? And they were freaking out. Because they're like, are you still able to get in? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the Navy. The Navy is the most lenient as far as I can tell. Even the Marines, even the Marines are a little bit more stringent on it.
With their tattoos.
Yeah. The Navy, they asked, I had to do a report on every single tattoo I have, and it was detailed. I had to say the meaning and everything, and apparently that was the most lenient, and it was long. I essentially had to write essays on my tattoos.
Yeah.
And by the way, most of my tattoos I just got because they look cool. I have some Sailor Jerry stuff. I like my old school sailor looking stuff I always have. It was before I even thought I was going to go in the Navy. I thought I was going to go in the Marines a long time ago, actually. I wanted to be in the Marines. Grew up wanting to do that, but no. Going to the Navy.
That's funny.
So...
But yeah.
Yeah, it's. I don't think it has a place.
Yeah, and I think, and that's my big, and I think it's one of those things. I know you're on the outside looking in right now, and I think it's one of those things. I think once you get in there,
we'll probably have another conversation.
We will, and we'll have another conversation post this. I'll call you on Skype or something like that. Give you like 6 months or a year after you're in, because it's one of those things when you get on the outside looking in, and especially from somebody who was like a higher enlisted rank that retired. And the other thing too is a lot of things change depending on who's in power.
Yeah.
And that's one of my biggest issues with the military is the military was supposed to be untouched and unchanged by who was in political power. And that was supposed to be our whole goal, was to go out there and defend the country and kick ass and take names. And that was supposed to be our job at the end of the day. And the problem is depending on who's in power, depends on who appoints certain generals. And those certain generals, depending on how they lean politically, will either be good or bad for the military.
I have an example of how PC the military's gotten. So I have a buddy who I will not name whatsoever because he's going through a lot of stuff right now. But he recently got in a lot of trouble for hazing. He's a Marine. And I know what he did to a certain extent. And it's not hazing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider it hazing. That's how, like, they're getting Marines for hazing. That's wacky to me. I don't know. I feel like the Marines, you're supposed to go in and be like, yeah, no, that's gonna suck. You just gotta embrace the suck in that one. He was running some training stuff, so I was like, that makes sense. Like, I don't get why.
I think it's the pussification of the military.
I think it's just the people. I think it's all the people. They're just. I don't get why the Marines, it's supposed to be hard. If you go in the Marines not expecting it to be terrible, it's not supposed to be fun.
No.
I've never once talked to any Marine who was like, yeah, I went in and thought it would be easy. It wasn't. I'm like, why'd you fucking... Like, that's not a thing. They go in, they're like, dude, I'm going to get yelled at every day, all stoked and crazy, because they're insane people and I love them. But, like, I don't get it. Like, the Marines, the Army Marines and those guys, they shouldn't have any issue with that. And I'm sorry, Navy dudes, like, the submarine guys are insane. Those are crazy guys. I haven't gotten to talk to too many of them, but man, they are insane.
I got a buddy of mine I can hook you up if you ever want to talk to a submarine.
I don't ever want to be on a sub.
I got a buddy who's
I'll talk to him, but I don't want to be on a sub.
And it's one of those things where, you are supposed, you want, they don't call, especially with the Marines, they don't call them dogs, devil dogs. And I know there's a lot of history behind where that name comes and stuff like that. But
some cool history
the old phrase of release the dogs of war exists for a reason, because when you unleash your army upon a population, they should know that absolute hell is coming down upon them, and they should be the nastiest, meanest, roughest, just most uncaring psychopaths on the face of the planet, that you have just enough control over them that you can keep a leash on them from not just randomly taking out not randomly taking out civilians.
Which, by the way, from my understanding, we're really good about not getting civilians involved in shit. Like lately, like, I think the numbers, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but like during the Ramadi, during the invasion of Ramadi, we had really, really low civilian casualties, but the Al-Qaeda had huge. They were killing civilians left and right. They were murdering teachers.
Yeah.
And the teachers had to be fully fucking armed because, they were killing teachers. They were killing trash guys. They were just trying to make it hell for the people there. And it's like, we're fighting monsters. People forget we're fighting monsters. There's a group of SEALs who were talking, and they were in I think they were Rangers. It was Ranger Battalion. And they were talking, and they were like, yeah, we were in I got home, and people were like, oh, they were talking shit. And he was like, they didn't say anything because, Rangers, silent professionals, whatever. He was talking about it on a podcast with a buddy, and he was like, dude, I was in there, and my buddies would take me to, he'd be like, dude, look what I just found. And he was like, what? And they go into a room, and there was chains where they were hanging people and skinning them alive. They were staying in this fucking, it was an airport, and it was just hell in there for people. Like, they were in the aftermath of it, but they would run across rooms that were just torture rooms. And it's like, they realized they were dealing with actual monsters. And they were like, okay, let's kill these sons of bitches. Like, we're sending good people over there, and they're seeing hellish shit. And, we're treating them like they're normal. And it's like, I'm sorry, these guys have to deal with a lot of shit. Let them fucking do what they got to do.
Yeah.
We're telling the baddest sons of bitches on earth that they need to be PC, and it's like, that's not the place for it. Yeah. The Air Force dudes who are running drones, that's a scary job. Because they're having really bad PTSD issues.
They do, because there's so just to touch on that real quick. Actually, one of the PTSD issues, one of the biggest issues with that when it comes to like the drone pilots and stuff like that.
The worst one.
Yeah, it really is, because the problem is there's a separation between a lot of the psychology, I think, that I remember reading about and listening to, was the problem is you have this separation of reality. Because you're sitting behind a computer screen and you're pushing a button and people die. And there's a lot, the fact that you are not, the fact that those people that are killing, that, and whether you want to look at it or not, either way people are dying. So they're killing somebody. It's not murder, it's justified, whatever, that kind of thing. But what it is you're killing people with the push of a button. You're putting people in charge of that button that are not physically and mentally properly trained the same way our traditional quote-unquote killers are trained. So the kind of person that goes into special forces and the kind of person that succeeds in those kind of industries are the kind of people that go into that system that either consciously made the decision that I'm going into an environment where I know I'm going to have to kill people, and that's just something I'm going to have to figure out a way to deal with. Okay, those people join those special groups. There's a reason why they're volunteer. You have to join those special groups because you're going to learn, you're going to go through things, you're going to see things, you're going to go through suffering, you're going to go through pain. You're going to have to kill people, and that's part of the job of signing up for that. So that gives you a different mindset.
Well,
Going through all that training gives you a different mindset. The problem with drone operators is drone operators are computer geeks. They're pulled out of flying situations. They're pulled off of. These aren't people that were trained and indoctrinated into a system to where you are choosing that position because at some point you are going to have to kill somebody and you're going to have to figure out a way to deal with that.
Let me oh, cool.
Well, and what I was saying was that that's the problem with that, is that's where a lot of that stems from, and that's because these are people that weren't toughened and weren't hardened by the old school military ways, and because they weren't raised and hardened into proper weapons like that, they are now breaking because they weren't forged in the fire that the old school military puts people through.
Well, hold on. Can you go ahead and pull up the SEAL Creed real quick for me?
Yeah, sure.
Put it up on the screen so I can read it. So you're also not trained the same way, which I hate to say, but I think they should be trained the same way, because you're put into situations where you're
you never know what you might have to fill in for somebody.
Well, and so here's the deal with the drone pilots, because we're talking about that right now. And so SEALs, Rangers, all these guys, they're vetted to be. All that's left at the end of those selection processes are the people who won't quit. They refuse to quit under any circumstance whatsoever. So the SEAL Creed, it reads.
Yeah, there you
go. Okay. Can you minimize
Yep.
the OBS real quick? Sorry, I just can't. Okay. So, in times of uncertainty, there is a special breed of warrior ready to answer the nation's call. A common man with uncommon desire to succeed, forged by adversity. That alone says what it needs to say. You're separating the uncommon type of human being to do the job that is the hardest. And people, I think the military in general and a lot of people haven't realized that maybe that's not only kicking down doors and taking names. Maybe it's also the drone pilots who are, they're killing a lot of people. Whereas, okay, so say you send a team of SEALs, that's like I think it's 10 people that run a squad if they're taking down a place on a given night, just give or take. And remember, I'm not in that world, maybe yet, who knows. But I'm not involved in that, so I don't know. I haven't gone and planned missions. I don't know what all it takes. But give or take from what you can see and what research you can do, you realize that's a lot of people. So, maybe they kill, say a house is jam-packed with 20 people, right? each person, and it won't happen like that. Each person, say, kills one person. Cool. 2 at most. These drone pilots are killing 30 people, 40 people, 50 people a day. Then they have to go, and then their wife calls them, and they're like, hey, can you pick up some Doritos on the way home?
Or they get a text message.
And you can't talk to your wife about you just killed 50 fucking people. So, because that's top secret clearance, to put it in perspective. That you cannot talk about your job.
No.
Those types of worlds, you don't talk about your job. You can maybe say like broad shit, but I don't think those guys are allowed to talk about anything as far as I know. So you're telling me the only people, this guy can't vent to his wife that he goes home to every night, unlike most. You go home to your wife every night.
Yeah.
You pick up the eggs on your way home. You do all this random stuff. Like you're making a person do some of the hardest jobs, but you're not putting them through the same process the other people are going through that are doing the similar job. And it's like the military isn't focusing on what they're focusing on.
Well, and it's
like on what they should be focusing on.
Well, and they're it seems like they're afraid to put people through that kind of rigorous training because of the PC backlash. Now, I know at least when I enlisted, the whole cell phone thing and the stress card and all that kind of stuff was something that did not exist. My understanding
Is that in the Air Force?
Well,
right now?
no, my understanding was it only ever ended up happening in the Army.
Yeah, me too.
But it was one of those things. It was like, I heard that and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? What do you mean a stress card?
Yeah.
If your fucking drill instructor's screaming at you too much, you get to hold up a stress card and he stops? Like, what the fuck kind of training is that? Okay? Because I'm sorry, what am I going to do when I'm getting shot at? Okay? Am I going to hold up a stress card and go, please, Mr. Taliban, stop trying to kill me. I'm stressed out right now and I need a minute to collect my thoughts. No! What the fuck?
Well, because
And the whole cell phone thing, okay? The whole point of basic training is to move you into a system to where you are completely cut off from the rest of the world and remold you from a civilian to a trained killer.
Well,
to a trained military individual that can be part of a unit and does everything and question everything. They are supposed to indoctrinate you. They are supposed to change the way you're thinking. And if you allow people to have outside influences to that set up, tried and true system that we've been using for hundreds of thousands of years to train and make the best killers in the world, okay, when you start eliminating the things that make those people the best killers in the world, you've officially put us all in danger.
Well, I have someone I met during my...
Sorry.
No, you're okay.
Someone I met during MEPS. We rode together to MEPS. My ship date was 6 months after my MEPS. She is already in boot camp. She went Army. And I saw pictures the other day of her in boot camp. And I was like, that's weird.
Well, now, was there pictures of her? Because I know they're
She was
doing
in uniform.
social media.
She was in uniform.
Okay, but did she take the picture?
I think so.
Okay, because I know there's a lot of social media with that now. They've got they're posting pictures online, especially because of the visit, the corona and everything.
Yeah.
They've been posting a lot of pictures on social media of the.
It might be because of that, but I know the Navy right now because
Okay, but did she was she using? Did they have stress cards in the Army and basic training for her?
I assume that's never changed as far as I know since it's been implemented.
Oh, okay.
They're allowed to have their phone. They can check it in the evening, as far as I know, and they're able to. They have this. I think they still have the stress cards. Don't know if the Air Force has them nowadays. Like I said,
I know they didn't.
The
have
Navy sure as fuck doesn't. The only difference right now in the Navy, as far as what you can have on you, your phone is in a box now, and it's put away, so you can get it whenever you graduate.
Yeah, that's what it was in the Air Force.
It wasn't like that in the Navy. You sent it home.
Oh, see, the Air Force they locked
just
it away
because no
for
one's
us.
coming for graduation. It's recorded now.
Oh,
your
well, that's just
graduation
because of the
ceremony.
corona stuff.
Yeah,
right
that's the only
now.
difference. Because normally your family would bring you your phone and whatever you.
Oh yeah,
clothes.
no, they locked ours up.
Yeah, that's the only difference now for the
We
Navy.
we locked ours up until we graduated.
I know we're staying at the Army base for our 2-week quarantine over. I can't remember the place called. Whatever. It's by Great Lakes. It's in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the Army bases over there, and then now we'll be shipped over to the boot camp after that. And we're not staying in a lodge anymore, which is kind of nice actually. But yeah, no. It's weird. I just don't like the general lack of people understanding what the goal is.
It's of the military.
Well, I mean, just the boot camps got easier. I mean, from emotionally, obviously they're physically the same for the most part. give and take. I know the Navy's moving over to planks instead of sit-ups just because it's less stress on your back, but it works the same thing. And it just makes sense. I mean, science-wise, I'm like, okay, cool. You're making my back last longer because I,
They need to bring back the days where your drill sergeant could punch you in the face for talking shit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, police officers are allowed to do open hand. I say, if you don't want to punch, do an open hand. Knock somebody in the next year.
I'll get out of line if someone were to like pull up a stress card on the sergeant. I'll get out of line, go up to him, like then bitch smack him myself. It's like, I got you, Sarge. Ka! You may not be able to do it, but I can do it.
Well, I think they should do what they do and like have a bell. You want to quit? Quit. We don't want you here. Because that's what they do in most of the special force training. You can quit.
Yeah.
Fine. We'll give you a good night's rest, a meal, and send you on your way. Perfect. We don't need people who are giving up in boot camp.
Well, and it's like and that's something that happens even in basic training too. It's one of those things where they will try to encourage you to stay, okay, because they obviously need the numbers.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, if you go into basic training and you're halfway through and you're like, fuck this, I'm done, there's nothing they're going to do to hold you there.
Yeah.
They're going to let you out. But it's one of those things, it's like, I never had an issue with the drill sergeants yelling at me or any of that other kind of stuff. Yeah, it was stressful, but it was one of those things, I enlisted knowing all of that was going to happen. And the problem is they think they're trying to do what they're afraid of is their enlistment numbers are going down. So they're trying to make things easier. But the problem with doing that is when you weaken the requirements, you're going to weaken your military force. And they're afraid of their recruiting numbers going down, and so they're making it easier to get in, and they're making more incentives to get in. But the problem is, just like any other government regulation, the more you try to influence things, the worse it's going to get. And if they are trying to make the military easier to operate inside of because the civilians have turned into pussies, then all you're going to end up doing is losing your military power at the same time.
Yeah, it's a place where quitting, it means death. In the real world, like
in the military, failing means death.
Yes, because I'm sorry, a Marine in the middle, and granted, Marines are still Marines. I don't think they've changed much, minus the ability to be reported for fucking hazing, which doesn't make sense. By the way, quick story on that. Old school infantry school, they used to brand them.
Really?
Yeah, they would take coat hangers, and this has been gone for a while because it's not illegal to do this. They would take the new guys and they would drag them out of their beds and hold them down, and they would have a coat hanger they would put into USMC, and they would light it and get it really, really red hot, and then they would brand them. Which, fuck yeah, you're in the Marines, you might as well go hard, right? But, I mean, I get taking that thing away, but like...
So I'll set up for a tattoo.
Nah, dude. Brand
It's like
me. That would be badass.
tattoo.
Yeah, nah, branding's cool.
No, but, the whole point of the military is to break you down so they can build you up.
Yeah, you're
into what they want. You're supposed to take the humanity out of you and turn you into a number.
Not really.
Well, no. Actually, stop. Carlos, what's your... being the civilian at the table, not enlisted at all, never been enlisted. I know your dad was in the Army, but what, in your opinion, as a civilian, somebody who's never served or really has any interest in serving, at least not at this time, what's your opinion on what should be the military's purpose? How should they treat you? What should you be like? What's your opinion on how the military should operate?
See, the funny thing is, when I heard about the whole stress cards and everything, I didn't hear about anybody's opinion yet. I heard just about the stress cards, and just that alone actually pissed me off. I got really mad just hearing the fact that they had stress cards in the military for no reason at all.
Well, why? What was your instantaneous? Why did you have the negative reaction to it?
Because I've heard my father told me stories about when he was in the military and everything, and like what the whole purpose of it is, and I understand like why what the whole purpose of the whole military and everything, to make soldiers that would protect our country and everything. But if you make the soldiers weak by doing this stuff, you're just weakening our defenses.
So if you were going to enlist, what would you expect to happen? If you were going to join, how do you think you should be treated in basic training?
First
If
thing
you-
I would do is I'll tear up that paper.
Okay, but no. If
Hypothetical.
in your opinion, how would, in your opinion, if you enjoyed basic training, how would you expect to be treated?
Pretty much how they treated people before. Just I want to be trained as well as my father was trained, because I want to learn how to be a real soldier, not like this person who's like afraid of actually getting like stressed out and everything. It's really annoying.
Yeah,
It's disheartening at the very least.
yeah, it's definitely very
Yeah.
disheartening.
It's a concerning development just for the military in general. Just I hope no one else adopts it. Is my real hope. I would really be bummed to see the next generation go through boot camp and not have a boot camp experience. Because you talk to anyone, I mean, it's the one common. Like, I mean, okay, you were a structure mechanic. I'm going to go in as an MA. We'll have completely different A schools, but our boot camp should be similar.
Yeah.
It's minus the Marines, because Marines are insane. People who don't know, they have a genuinely hellish boot camp.
Oh yeah. Well, and and it's one of those things. Like, even though I was in the Air Force, it's one of those. They say ours is more technical and we have to learn more knowledge bases and stuff like that. But I'll tell you right now, you go in there and people are like, well, I don't want to get yelled at, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that. Well, then you don't need to be in the military.
No.
Because that's something that you have to be exposed to. You have to be exposed to that kind of stress to make sure that you won't flinch. That's the reason why a drill instructor gets in your face and screams at you, because he wants to make sure that you have the intestinal fortitude that when gunfire is going over your head, you're not going to freak out and turn into a puddle of mess on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
That you're going to be able to handle stress, that you can get through those situations. And if you're not exposing those people, part of basic training should be, and at least it used to be, is weeding out those that aren't going to be successful in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And now the problem is basic training is now established to take any asshole and customize their military experience to where you can make them successful in the military. That's not the point of basic training. The point of basic training is to train you, and if you can't be trained the way we're going to train you, then we don't need you. And I think their recruiting numbers going down made them scared. So they were willing to accept things that they may not have always agreed with, just because they were terrified of not having enough bodies. But the problem is, I think that a lot of that came down to funding, because if they don't have enough bodies, they're not going to get as much funding. And that's just that's unfortunately, that's the shitty part about having to have that's one of the few things the government has to do is, run the military.
Yep.
And unfortunately, instead of the military staying just as a strictly military thing, when money starts getting involved, people start compromising. People start compromising their values when money starts getting involved, because they're afraid of losing that money.
Yep.
The problem, what I think is, one highly trained soldier is just as good as 5 barely trained soldiers. So there's really no point in actually like lowering the standards just to get more numbers in there, because they're just going to be barely trained. They're not going to be as good as a normal soldier.
Yeah.
So.
Very true.
Yep.
Very true. And I think that's the best way to put it.
What's up? What do you want?